Good morning, everybody. As we get started again today, we want to just assess what has happened with the last several days of this very powerful system that's kind of snuck down the west coast of the United States. So it's kind of just slowly moved itself here and is now finally starting to come into Southern California. And over that same time, a deeper trough of low pressure is developed across the west. And this is going to allow this system to very rapidly later today eject into the plains. And that's going to set us up with this event we've been talking about all week. But the map I've been drawing on here shows you the last 72 hours of total accumulated snowfall. And I just want to point out that the mountain ranges throughout California in through this area have picked up in some places another 3 to 4 feet of snow. Also some more snow in the southern Cascades. Now the system that follows this is not only going to be putting down some more cold air throughout the west, but possibly very heavy snows in the Cascades, northern Rockies, all the way to the central Rockies. And we'll talk about the snow in the Midwest in just a few seconds here. But I want to show you where this is going to kind of manifest itself later today. So here's that low. See it right here on the corner of this animation. And as we just play this animation into the overnight, when we look here at the infrared data, it's now sitting over Southern California this morning. And what I want to point out here is just the amplitude of this pattern. You're going to see flow coming like this and immediately like that. And what that illustrates for us when we look here at the cloud field on infrared satellite imagery, it just tells me how deep this trough is. And there is a subtropical component to the flow coming right in through here. So what this means is a very highly amplified storm system. And highly amplified storm systems have a lot of curvature in the flow at the upper levels. And what that tends to do is really increase the probability that the system will rapidly intensify with a lot of wind shear. And that is why we're concerned on Friday on the risk of severe storms across these areas. Now, the Storm Prediction Center has increased to a moderate risk here in parts of Iowa, Illinois, and down here where we meet Missouri, Arkansas, Mississippi, parts of western Tennessee, Kentucky, maybe southern Illinois. Now, I make these maps using data from the Storm Prediction Center, which is the best in the business at doing this, hands down. And what I want you to know is that I've linked this in the report so that you can, should you want to, actually read the discussion. Now, I try to keep these videos shorter, so I'm not going to do it today, but I want to show you the main influence here. What you've got in this first map is showing you the probability of having these storms produce tornadoes. What we're concerned about is the way that the winds are backing right into this area, while strong winds are going to run over the top out of this direction. That's a lot of shear. So we're concerned about the risk of tornadoes developing in parts of Iowa, Illinois, and then down here again in that second region in parts of the Mid-South. The wind threat is also very high in this area, up to a 45% risk of having severe winds. Oops, they just updated the map. But we're also keeping an eye on this second region. And finally, the hail threat is likely highest here. We call this the triple point. This is an interesting intersection between fronts that come together here. So we have enhanced forcing that causes the storms to initialize. And then you have all of the ingredients, the instability, you have the wind shear, you have the trigger, and you've got everything that's coming together to make this sucker blow up a potential nasty round of storms. Now this is just one aspect of the storm system. On the northern side, we have to talk about snow. So looking at the European model, as this low curls through, there will be a few places in parts of South Dakota, Minnesota, getting into Wisconsin, that could have a very narrow band of more than 10 inches of snow. It's late March. It's very difficult to forecast snowfall amounts in late March. But we're looking here at what the models are honing in on. And just remember, on my color bar, I make a break at 4 inches, all right, for where you get over into the blues. So that kind of helps you see where we're expecting the heaviest snow. Then if we slide over here, this is the probability over the next 72 hours of getting at least 4 inches of snow. So we can see those two regions as having over a 90% chance of getting at least 4 inches. So we are expecting quite a bit more out of this. All right, that snow is going to hit an area that's got a lot of snow on the ground. So just to remember, we're talking about this area and this area. And we've been talking about the increased risk of spring flooding. We've talked about what this snow means in terms of keeping the region cool through mid-April. And therefore, this is just going to add more to an area. And this is just the first of 2 storm systems that are going to do this. So we are finishing March and beginning April, adding a lot to the pattern we've seen get us to this point. So let's talk about what it looks like in the models. First of all, winds. This is from today's high-res NAM model, and I'm forecasting out for you here the maximum accumulated wind gusts through midday Saturday. So this storm system, in addition to producing very strong winds throughout the central United States over toward the Appalachian Mountains, we're talking about gusts that could get up in that 40 to 60 mile an hour range. On the backside of this, where it will be dry, we're going to be watching out for wildfire risk. There's a red flag warning out for this area, and also the risk of blowing sand and dust. And that is why the all hazards weather map has now increased the area over which it's got a red flag warning right now for parts of the southern plains back into the southwest. This color represents a high wind warning in this region, and we're going to see this region possibly see more than just a winter storm watch. We'll probably see this begin to move over to a winter storm warning as we approach this particular storm system moving through this area tomorrow. Okay, so models. High-res NAM. Here's the evolution of this system. Potential today for ice in this region through this evening, and heaviest snow is probably right here in this part of Wisconsin around Green Bay. We then see the potential for some storms tonight lining up into this particular part of the country, but in the overnight hours, rain moves across the eastern Corn Belt and eastern Great Lakes. We start to see the snow taking shape right in through here by the time we get into mid-morning Friday. And then this system right about here is where we're going to have to watch out for this. We often see two separate lines curling out of these style of system with supercells that lead, so they're out ahead of it. And so as we play from Friday afternoon and evening forward, what I think most of Missouri, Illinois, Indiana will experience is just a large frontal squall line. We call it a QLCS, a quasi-linear convective system, which means there could be embedded circulation, meaning embedded tornadoes inside of that system. But do you see kind of the split in the model right here? There's two separate lines. That's where we start to get concerned. That's just a signal in the models for the risk of some of these leading storms to be rotating. That's just one of the ways by which we see it. Then you notice on the backside the heavy snows. And at this point, here we are, 11 p.m. on Friday. That front sweeps all the way through, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio. And rain spreads into New England as the snow comes around the backside. We could replace the severe weather with snow here in parts of Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana. And that system curls off into the northeast. So a sharp change in temperature behind this as we work our way into Saturday. And then our attention just goes to the system that's coming back into the west on Saturday. That system today is right here. And you can see how active the Pacific is right now with developing these lows, but this is the guy we're watching. So to see where that one goes, let's go to the let's go to the model comparison between the GFS on the left and the European on the right. So I'm going to get you out there. Let's see that system roll through. Here's number 2. That system comes into the Pacific Northwest. I'm rocking back and forth over Saturday and Sunday. A lot of snow coming into the Cascades and eventually into the Northern Rockies. You then see that this system kind of gathers north of the Four Corners State, spreading its snow from Wyoming into parts of southern Montana, coming out into South Dakota. And I think South Dakota gets hit the hardest with this system right there. This is next Tuesday night. So once again, we're going to watch this corridor for the risk of strong to severe storms on Tuesday night. So playing this forward, that system moves, dumps more snow over the Red River Valley of the North, spreads more snow over parts of southern Manitoba and Ontario, and then it lines out heavy rains, potential for strong to severe storms through Wednesday night. That front clears the East Coast by Thursday, and we're going to watch carefully to see if there's one more of these lined up. The GFS still has it. The European's been toying around with it, but there might be a third storm system that's coming through here. Just want to let you know, if we come back to Tuesday night right here, the Storm Prediction Center has already issued, yesterday they issued a day 7 outlook for severe storms in this area. So we're going to keep an eye on this spot for next Tuesday night. On the snowy side of this, let's just play out 1 week to capture both systems by the European model. So there's the second system adding the snow to the Cascades, this part of the Northern Rockies, and then the Central Rockies, and then as it ejects from Wyoming to South Dakota up to the Red River Valley, that is, you can see what the model's doing with some of these snowfall totals. So just incredible to see that right now. Okay, what about the liquid side of this? Over the next 10 days, these next 2 systems could add an inch of liquid into these areas. This is the probability of getting at least an inch of total precipitation. Here's the probability of 2 inches. So you can see how this is just adding to the pattern we've been in for the whole month of March. On the drier side of this is the probability of getting less than a ½ inch. So now we can identify those regions that continue to stay on the drier side of things. Now, we're always looking for pattern change. And what has gotten us here has been this: ridging in Alaska, troughs over the west, ridging here. That's probably one of the most active jet stream pattern setups we can have for the United States. But the only place that misses on this is New England. And I don't mean they miss everything, but they just miss the really active stuff. So watch this. As we play forward, there's the system we're watching next week. See how it looks exactly the same? This is why this pattern's kind of on repeat through the next 7 to 10 days. But I do notice that out there around the 8th, 9th, and 10th, the models still want to switch this flow up a little bit. See that? And that could be the beginning of a pattern shift that may fully take shape once we get into the second half of April. So we're going to have to wait until that point before we get there. But it is showing up in the models. This is the day 8 through 14, so week 2 precipitation forecast from the CPC, European model, and the GFS. And it's important to see that the moisture is coming back to the coastal parts of British Columbia. That is a significant pattern change. We see drier conditions being forecast for California throughout much of the Pacific Northwest. Still wet here. That's the remnants of that second and possibly third system. But good news there. By the way, just want to show you the GFS agrees with the European on where that snow is going to be. Just wanted to point that out. So we better talk about temperatures next. This is the probability of getting a frost over the next 7 days from the National Digital Forecast Database. Let's go ahead and look from here at what the high temperatures are expected to be. This is today on Thursday. There's that large warm sector opening on Friday. Watch how quickly that's replaced with cold air on Saturday as the warmer air moves into New England, keeping all of this rain. And then we go from there into Sunday. That's ahead of the next system here on Monday, Tuesday. And then again, cold air follows this one. Now this cold air that has just been anchored in the forecast here, watch. The newest European model, which mimics the GFS, keeps that around through the first full week of April. But as we start to see the redistribution of the coldest air across the northern hemisphere, we may start to see this pattern shifting. And as it does that, once we get to the middle of April and beyond, that's when we're going to start to worry a lot about the spring flooding threat here and all throughout the West as that snow melts. So that'll be top of mind getting to that point, let alone the severe weather risk that's going to continue for parts of the the mid-south, the southern plains, and the southeast. All right, lastly, South America. Models continue to trend less dry across a broad section of Brazil. The region that you see that's dry here, that's eastern Mato Grosso, Tocantins, Goiás. They'll still receive 50 to 80 millimeters of rainfall in the next 10 to 15 days. But to the south, this is a new drier signal that's beginning to show up. Remember, this follows incredibly heavy rains over the last 10 days in Argentina, but southern Brazil going over dry. So this kind of removes the worry of problems on the safrinha crop, but sends Argentina back into more trouble as they go drier once again. So we'll just keep watching this, and I'll keep reporting back to you. Have a good week. I'll talk to you all tonight for the in-depth report, and again tomorrow morning. Thanks.